Hey everyone, the authoritarians in the establishment, yeah, they're hell-bent on never having to deal with their day of reckoning and hoping that that day will never come. Shh, don't tell them, but it's going to come, whether they like it or not. And there's no possible way that they're ever going to shut down or silence us all. You can bet on that. Headline out of CBC News, Politics, Facebook's Zuckerberg, Sandberg could be found in contempt of Parliament, MPs warn. Canada has asked them to appear before international elected officials this week to discuss tech and privacy. It's been reported by Catherine Tunney, May 27, 2019. Canadian MPs are warning that Facebook's top officials could be found in contempt of Parliament if they continue to ignore a subpoena to testify in Ottawa this week. Starting today, the House of Commons Privacy and Ethics Committee will be joined by elected officials from around the world to discuss data collection, privacy online, and democracy. Yeah, the House of Commons Committee will be joined with a bunch of elected officials, so a bunch of authoritarian politicians are trying to figure out or conjure up or construct some way where, like I say, they'll be able to follow through in keeping the establishment in power and denying any up-and-comers such as Maxime, the PBC, or those that support him from having our voice or our influence, having the kind of dominance that they've seen happen throughout the rest of the Western world. That's really the only thing that they're fearful of, is losing their grip on power and the narrative. And social media platforms are what have given all of us the ability to deny the gatekeepers that kind of status. I get a lot of you out there are pissed off at Facebook and Twitter, and I'll agree that they've done some things wrong, or at least certain people within those organizations have done some things wrong and have targeted particular people, and probably is based on their political leanings or background. But hey, you also have to admit that it's social media that's allowing each and every one of us our voice to push back against the status quo or the establishment. Without social media, think about how things would be truly playing out. You'd never be able to hear from people like myself or all the many other Canadians who are now standing firmly in the fight against the establishment and the status quo. We would never have our voices out there. And think about what that would represent. So as much as, like I say, you might want to hold these social media platforms to a high standard, and I agree with you in that regard, but don't ever forget, it's those in government. These are the people that are the representation of force or violence. Zuckerberg has no authority over you, right? Sheryl Sandberg has no authority over you. Jack Dorsey has no authority over you. You don't have to fear these people. I mean, they might be able to silence you or shut you down from the platform, but that's all they can do. These hacks in the government, these are the people that get to write legislation, and these are the people that are looking to regulate the social media platforms and ultimately the internet. Those are the people who are the true enemies, but to not just freedom of speech and democracy, but more than willing to use force or the threat of force as an ultimate means to their end. The committee had extended invites to some of the most well-known tech players, including Facebook, Twitter, and Google. The mix of MPs, senators, and government officials from around the world are to join Canada's Privacy and Ethics Committee as they hear from witnesses. So like I say, a bunch of central planners. Sounds a little bit conspiratorial. Sounds a little bit like they're conspiring, right? Hey, do I need a tinfoil hat here? No, not really. Because they're literally saying that, unless you're suggesting, unless I'm suggesting that, I guess, the hacks in the CBC or this reporter, Catherine Tunney, I guess she must be conspiratorial because that's what she's reporting. I'm just relaying the message, folks. So that alone sounds like, doesn't that sound like a whole bunch of people that are conspiring to deny people their voices and their ability to speak openly? Sounds like it to me. Earlier this month, the committee voted to subpoena Facebook's founder Mark Zuckerberg and Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg to appear as witnesses. If they continue to ignore that summons, Conservative MP Bob Zimmer said the Ethics Committee has talked about finding them in contempt of Parliament. I don't think it would send a good message internationally about, blowing off an entire country of 36 million people, said Zimmer, the chair of the Commons Committee. The bottom line is that they show up and answer our questions. So my hope is that still happens. If Zuckerberg and Sandberg are no-shows this week, the committee would first have to vote on a motion recommending a contempt finding before it could go to the floor of the House of Commons for a vote. Finding someone guilty of obscuring Parliament is a rare move in Canada. A study from the Library of Parliament found that while allegations of contemptuous behavior are made frequently, findings of contempt are unusual. Also, while the House of Commons has a range of penalties to punish contempt, a fine of contempt is often considered sufficient in itself, notes the library. So anyways, I just want to reiterate here, so that first person was MP, like a conservative MP, Bob Zimmer. So think about that, because I'm going to move down a little further. Keep that in mind. Even if it's only a symbolic finding, it could send a message, said NDP MP and Committee Vice Chair Charlie Angus. If they believe that Canadian lawmakers are so inconsequential, then that is contempt of Parliament, said Angus. You have a company that acts with complete disregard for the democratic systems that we've put in place. To me, that's just unbelievable that a company could be that dismissive, and I think they have to be held accountable. Respect my authority, right? First of all, my relationship with Facebook has nothing to do with government. That's completely voluntary. That's a voluntary interaction. The fact that these hacks in government think that they should have some kind of authority to arbitrate my voluntary interactions with a company, sorry, don't need that kind of authoritarianism. I'm a big boy. I'm an adult. I can deal with that all by myself. Charlie. Liberal MP Michel Picard, another committee member, said it would show how seriously Canada takes the issue. We are not hunting companies. We are demanding as much collaboration as possible, he said. We need those companies to work more with us. Anyways, before I tie this up, which I'll place a link to this article in the description of the video below, but yeah, so far, and this is tomorrow, I think it's supposed to be happening, and so far, and not just Mark, but Sheryl Sandberg, and actually none of the execs have agreed to show up. So hopefully, I hope that none of them actually do show up, and that will send a very clear message that, yeah, no, they're an American company. And the service that they provide to Canadians, once again, it's a voluntary exchange. We don't need government to protect us. We can read the policy. We can, like I said, we can deal with things as adults. Don't need authoritarian mommy or daddy, whether it's, like I say, whether it comes from the right or the left, to dictate and determine or arbitrate our voluntary actions with social media platforms. No, we're completely content with dealing with it all on our own. As you can see, these authoritarians, and that's why I was saying a little bit earlier on. Notice it was a conservative, and then Charlie, the NDP guy, and then this liberal MP, Michel Picard. Look, a liberal, a conservative, and an NDPer. All joining together. Where's that partisanship? There is no partisanship when it comes to being authoritarians or dictating, controlling every area of your social and economic lives. That's where they will come together. I hope more and more Canadians are starting to come to that realization and start supporting people like Maxime and his party, the PPC, who actually will respect your individual rights, freedoms, and liberty and treat you as an adult. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.